Hello, welcome to our discussion in this video about the trail of a pace. The trail of a pace. When doing a self-instructional curriculum such as Accelerated Christian Education's PACE curriculum, it's very important that you work through the material methodologically and follow procedure and have a routine and system so that you ensure that each element that is being taught is mastered and the child comprehends it and is able to be adequately tested upon that and move on in their learning. Let's talk about how this will work in a PACE. The very beginning of every PACE will contain a page called the Goals or Objectives page. It's recommended that the child read this aloud to you. This will tell you and the child exactly, the student, exactly what is going to be learned and tested in this particular PACE. So please review that and be aware of it. You will notice on the bottom there will be a spot, a yellow highlighted section. This is an area for the supervisor, and you are their supervisor, to sign. So once it's been read, you should initial it at the very bottom or sign your name. Initialing is recommended. The material within these PACEs is what we refer to as self-instructional. And when we say self-instructional, it means that all of the teaching material will be contained within the text. Now, if your child has difficulty reading, it may be necessary for you to listen to them read all their material out loud. This is something that you should do for every first grader. And for second graders, there will be multiple pages where it's highly recommended, but each unique student need may dictate how often that will occur. But the material itself is contained here. So the questions on all questions are also contained. All the questions are based off of the reading material. So it's very important that the student read the material, whether it's instructions on how to do something, or oftentimes in the math and English, they will be teaching a particular concept, and that will be in the teaching material itself. So please keep that in mind. Additionally, there are other pages that will need to be read, and that will include vocabulary pages. Now, most PACEs will have vocabulary pages. They'll be indicated with red stripes or red corners, or colored stripes and colored corners for different sections. Each section will have vocabulary. The student should read the vocabulary aloud. There is a pronunciation guide to help, but they should read it aloud as well as the definition. The reason for this is because vocabulary is an important part of the learning process, as well as ensuring proper pronunciation so that the student is aware of how to properly phonetically pronounce each word. So those should also be read. And when a student reads it, it is recommended that you sign or initial at the bottom. Why? Well, it helps you to keep track of things. You don't want to be going through the material and realize, oh, did they ever read that to me? I don't remember. If you initial it, it indicates, oh yes, we've done that. So please do take advantage of the initialing with pen, pencil. We recommend a green pen, but you are welcome to use whatever you like, just so long as your initial is there. There will be times when you will have to score work that is not contained in the score keys, and we have a separate video on scoring procedure, but there will be times when you'll have to score things that are not in the score key, and you will see those, and they will be indicated typically with a yellow block that indicates ask your supervisor to score, because this is based on the child's creativity. Fill in the blank with an action verb of your own. The earth blank around the sun every 365 days. Well, the student will have to put in an answer that they think of. There won't be necessarily a correct, well, there is a correct answer. We know what the answer to that question is. But you will then have to check and make sure that they did appropriate words that match the criteria of the instructions in that particular section. Additionally, as the student is working through the material, they'll start, let's go ahead and look at this English PACE as a sample. Again, they would start in this way, and then they would move on, read the material as they go, read the teaching material, answer the questions that correlate with that, and then you will see, and there will be multiple of these throughout the PACE, scoring strips. When a student arrives at a scoring strip, it will be necessary for them to go ahead and follow the proper scoring procedures to check and make sure that they are doing their work correctly. It is not good for a student to work past multiple scoring strips without going to score the material. These are checks and balances that help to ensure that, oh, if you're understanding this, now let's move on. Again, the scoring procedure is an affirmation process as well as a learning tool. So please don't allow them to go through the whole unit and then score it, because then you'll find all kinds of problems that could have been addressed if only they had been scoring along in appropriate time frames, realizing, oh, I need to correct this, or I need to do that, or oh, I'm doing this incorrectly, now let me fix it. So we need to make sure we follow that procedure as well. There will be times when they will have to write things like paragraphs, perhaps in this like they do in this literature and creative writing pace. And you would also need to score that, and there will be samples of that scoring. The yellow highlighted areas will indicate that, as well as perhaps this sample as well. One last thing I want to talk about is checkups. In self-test, every PACE will have a checkup and a self-test. They will have 3 checkups and 1 self-test, and each checkup is like a stopping point. This section of material will be quizzed, and a checkup is a quiz. And then you will be able to see, oh, they did really well on this quiz, so they know the material. Oh, they did very poorly on this quiz. They don't seem to know the material. We recommend an 80% or better on the quiz. They should get an 80% or better in order to really master the material. And if they don't get an 80% or better, then they should review and perhaps retake the quiz until they are able to do so. Because we want to make sure we master not only the whole unit, but each individual section. If you follow this procedure on your way through the PACE, you will be able to master, your student will be able to master the material, your child, and they will therefore have success in the test as they come to it. Before a child takes a checkup, before a student is allowed to take a checkup, they should get your permission. The student, when they come to this, should not just take the checkup. They should stop, and you should tell them, before you take that checkup, let me look back, and you should go back through and make sure that everything is completed. Everything has been scored properly, and just look to make sure that there's nothing that you needed to score, that they haven't asked you to score yet, because if they see something that says supervisor score, they will need to bring it to you and get you to do that. So make sure everything is done, check it over, look at it, look at a couple of questions. Yeah, those answers look good. Looks like they're scoring properly. Looks like they're being honest and integrity in the way that they're checking these, because many students at times will just instead go up to the score key and just circle a page. I don't want to bother with this. But if there are things that are incorrect, if they're like, well, that doesn't look right, take a minute, spot check it, make sure everything is good. Then you'll say, okay, very good. And you will circle, you will initial the checkup, giving them permission to take it. And then that would be the procedure with all the PACEs for a checkup. In a word building checkup, this is word building. Word building is our spelling PACE. It focuses on proper spelling. Many word buildings from 1037, I believe it is, on up, you will have a section here where it says write these words out 3 times. Please ensure that your child, your student, is doing this, and then once they have, and insist that they show you the paper that they wrote these on, and then initial here again. So you'll have initial here for permission to take the checkup, and then for the word building, you'll have another initial here that says, oh yeah, you can go ahead and do this checkup. You have done this, and I have checked it to verify it. And again, once the child does the checkup, they will score, make sure that they do well. You want to check the score on that as well. So there will be 3 checkups, and there will be a checkup at the very end. And again, the procedure is check everything, make sure it's good. And if you do that, if you will follow that procedure, that before allowing them to take a checkup, you will go back through the previous pages and ensure that they are done correctly, you will be doing a very good job of ensuring the quality of the work, which will ensure a much better test grade in the end. So once the child gets through to the very end of the page, they work each page sequentially. They don't skip around the pages. You work 1 page, 2, 3, 4. You go in sequential order, following that procedure. That is the way to do it. Do not skip around when doing PACE work. That's just going to make for a mess in the end, and you don't want that. When you get to the final pages of the PACE, there will be something called a self-test. Now, the self-test is basically going to be like a big quiz, or it's a pre-test, and let you know how they're doing on the entirety of the material for this PACE. So before you give them permission to take this self-test, go back through one more time, make sure everything is good. You may want to quiz them briefly, particularly like in a science like social studies or science. You may want to look at some of the questions and say, just quiz them. So the first plan of government agreed upon by the colonies was called the Articles of what? Ask, see if they know, see if they've studied. You should encourage them, study the material beforehand. Study the material beforehand. because that's important. And then once that's completed, once you've done that, you're ready to go, sign it, let them take it. They should get at least an 80% on this self-test. You may want to require a 90, but that's up to your discretion. But at least an 80% on the self-test. If they do, that means that they are ready to take the test, but they should not take the self-test and then immediately take the test. You need to wait till the next day. So if the self-test is taken on Tuesday, the test would be taken on Wednesday. So it's going to be very important for you to do that, because you don't want to just take it, boom, right away. They need to sit on it and rest on it for the night. So wait until the next day to take the test. You will find that there's one other small procedure in a word building self-test. In a word building self-test, there will be a list of words that you will have to read to the student, and they will write down on separate paper. It's a spelling test. So you would read the word and give them a sample sentence. For instance, you'll read bag. I went to the grocery store and brought a bag. Bag. So therefore, they would spell the word bag. And once that's done, all of these words you'll go through. I would highly recommend you get a pencil or something and mark them off as you go. Then they will need to be scored. You may want to do it, or you may allow them to do it using this just as their score key, or the score key will have that in it as well. Then they'll work the rest of that on their own and go score it in the score key as well. And the next day, when they take the test in the word building, you will have to get the score key for the test key for the word building and read it. Read each word aloud to them as you go. That would be the procedure there, because there will be a spelling test in that as well. But that will be the day after the self-test. That is the trail of a PACE. Again, please follow the methodology. Go from one page to the next. Make sure scoring is occurring when scoring needs to occur. Make sure you're checking everything at a checkup, and make sure that you are working sequentially through. This will help ensure mastery of the material and the best learning experience possible. God bless.